Hi, I'm Chris Tofu and I'm on my barge Continental Drifts. We organise gigs for hundreds and thousands of people every year and we find the craziest new bands to entertain them with. And I go around playing music everywhere and that's been pretty much our life for 25 years. Do you know what? I'm really a half-full guy, so I was one of the last to realise it and denying the reality that all this was going to close down anyway. So I guess that was around the moment that Glastonbury said they weren't happening, which was last year around April. And then I was like, oh my God, and then just everything else started collapsing. It's not to say that I haven't actually been really busy and done quite a few gigs during the times that we could. And of course we've recorded over 100 bands for all our virtual reality stuff and stuff like that, you know, so that's been pretty cool. But yeah, ever since then really. You know, we're anomalies because we're like old geezers really. It's really what the 15 to 25-year-old guy wants to do that's going to be really changing. But I think there's some serious, how you say, infrastructural problems in terms of culture that have come along. You've got bands that have been running for 2 years who've never done a gig. You've got kids who don't want to be in a band anymore because they haven't even got any time to do that anymore. And then you've got this kind of, you know, very difficult landscape. I mean, it's been positive for some acts right now. I've got more gigs than they've ever had in their whole lives, especially UK heritage acts and sort of stuff that is really appealing to a populist audience. So some of the brass bands we work with have got gigs for the next 2 years solid every single weekend. In fact, they're phoning me up going, look, we just want to keep at least one weekend for a normal gig. And so that's been positive for them. And of course, because nothing's touring internationally, those big old heritage bands, UB40, Selector, people like that, you know, they're just rammed for the gigs. And their prices have gone up twice to what they were before lockdown and stuff like that. So they're kind of having quite a good time in all of this. Underground, new acts that maybe aren't so mainstream, they struggling because we're the guys who kind of represent those people and usually get those new words out. The loss of everyone's been blaring on about big fat festivals not happening, but nobody's really said a lot about the sort of, how you say, what do they call that when the drug that gets them into the rest of the drug gateway. The gateway drug for those guys is always going to be like smaller free community events, free festivals, local carnivals, local places. Nobody talks about them. They're not happening big time. And with the councils being really strapped, it's really difficult for them to get their stuff off. You know what I mean? So in that infrastructure, it's kind of worrying for new bands and stuff like that. They missed 2 years worth of doing the circuit. They've already been running for 2 years. Most of those bands last 2 or 3 years because, you know, they gave up the hope and they can go and do other gigs. Well, they haven't even had that experience yet. So yeah, I think that's, you know, going to cause some sort of permanent damage to it all. Brexit is massively affected those bands. I was in a band for like 10 years. Loads of people we know that if you go to Europe, you always went to Europe first time not expecting to make a penny, you know, be lucky if you paid for it. And then the second time you'd come back and you'd pay for it. Then the third time you went back, then you'd earn some money. And then the fourth time they'll be putting you on big stages. That whole grassroots thing in Europe has been destroyed by Brexit. And we were saying that from the moment that the word Brexit came up. And no one listened to us, and no one's listening to us now. The way that the Brexit was passed without any consideration to culture was just so typical of a kind of English sort of like business posh guys mentality where they're like, well, I'm not in a band, so I don't care, basically, which is what came out really big time. I mean, the one argument we had with all these people before, because we were trying to debate them in a kind of like, we were impressed by how Bernie Sanders and all that lot got together these mass phone banks where they'd actually go and try and talk to these crazy right-wing people. And the one thing we came out of all of that is that they just didn't care. And every time we said to them, hey, you know, this is going to destroy our livelihood, they're like, we don't care, and it's Project Fear. Of course it won't. Well, it's destroyed their livelihood.
Yeah.
There's no small band tourings in Europe. Obviously COVID has helped, but Brexit has really not helped. And all of that fact that you have to go and, you know, do all your whatever it's called. Carnet. All of that stuff is just a freaking joke. And I mean, like, Roger Daltrey and some of those guys pre-Brexit who turned out to be Brexit supporters. Well, I will never listen to another Who track for the rest of my life. They're absolute prat who really, you know, I mean, then there's this situation in London, but it's also everywhere else. So maybe like 15 years ago, the Russians started buying houses in London, and they started paying top dollar for those houses. And then that fed all the way through to somewhere like Ilford and Walthamstow, where you could buy a house for 80 grand, and now you could have to pay 300 grand for it. But they always said that at the top of that chain was the Russians paying double the prices for their posh gas in West London. It's the same thing with Brexit now. Brexit has led to loads of workers from the City of London never coming back to England, and they've actually, Holland, Amsterdam is now I mean, obviously, if you're I mean, I don't know these people, but if you're a young stockbroker, where would you rather live? Do you know what I mean? They all gonna smoke. They all gonna want a free life. My God, Holland, you can get any vice going, and these are vice people. And so that's had and will have a massive effect on London, because it's the guys at the top leads to the bottom. It's all one long, humongous chain. And I know that the GLA and the City of London Corporation are freaking about it. You know, they're really putting out some dark material about how screwed London is coming out of Brexit and COVID, you know. Obviously, you know, America lost Trump, but we still got Brexit, and, you know, that's just awful. And, you know, that's had a terrible effect. So what you're looking at now is places like Camden, Brixton, not so much Brixton really, Camden, Brick Lane, places like that. There's no tourists. People are going to stop coming because of COVID. They're going to stop coming because of Brexit. The concept of Cool Britannia, which showed Tony Blair and all that lot were going on about, well, you know, me and you have all been touring Europe, and, you know, it's been an amazing journey. There was like gigs that you could do in Europe where they're just like, hey, there's a band playing from London tonight, let's go, I don't care what the name is. And oh yeah, it's all cool. That's not there anymore. Cool Britannia is not cool anymore. It's such a difficult situation.
Do you think your business could actually close because of this?
A part of our business is just withering away right now, because we did a lot of work with Europe. We sent loads of bands over there. We were working with festivals like, oh yeah, the only thing we have to think about is the cost of the ferry.
Right.
All that's gone, so we've lost loads of our European friends over the years. Great, we haven't lost them as friends, but we've definitely lost the gig, because they're just like, sorry guys, you've always been working with this brilliant unknown English culture that everyone's going to go crazy for, but we just can't take that risk anymore, and we've got our own guys, so what the hell. So yeah, we went from cool to uncool since the beginning of January. But previous to that, I was going to lots of conferences in Europe and stuff like that, and literally having to be an apologist for my own country. Now it breaks your heart to see big fools like Farage and stuff like that discussing how it's all gone wrong. Oh yeah, no, I wish we didn't have this Brexit now. Seriously, they're saying this stuff. So as we were saying, who the hell, what has this brought us? It's totally the most draconian thing going. For the music industry, even for the record industry, have had to renegotiate all their ways that they make money out of music with every single country in Europe. It's screwed them. It's the third biggest, culture is the third industry, hospitality and culture is the third biggest industry in the UK. Didn't even get a place at any conversation pre-Brexit with anyone. Again, it's this kind of weird attitude I've come across with politicians before, because I've met the head of culture here for the government 3 or 4 times over the last 25 years. And the first words that comes out of their mouths is, well, we don't know anything about culture. Oh, no, yeah, when you guys are having a good time, we're doing this and that and this kind of like weird, let's not talk about it. We wouldn't know anything about it because we're these type of people thing. It's just absolute madness. So the chain is broken. It's impossible for artists to tour. It's very difficult to bring an act to UK. I import quite a lot of European acts and don't see any difference, except some of them are absolutely amazing and we really want them, like Chinese Man, Caravan Palace, a lot of smaller acts than that and stuff like that. We wouldn't even think of being able to bring them in the country anymore. So yeah, it's totally destroyed so many parts of our business. But I guess the biggest one is the broken chain. That chain that, you know, led to thousands of really rich people leaving London, that will have a serious marginal effect. An effect that the Tories would seriously understand, because, you know, these guys, similar in America, a lot of right-wing people believe that, you know, we shouldn't tax everyone. There's this kind of fake, non-existent trickle-down economy where, you know, the guy mowing my lawn is how I pay my tax. Well, hello, you just put us in a situation where no one's mowing your lawn anymore because they're not even got a lawn. The lawn's in Holland, and there's not a lawn because they don't have any. I mean, and I have spoke to a few of these people on panels and a few government people, and obviously most of the government people I spoke to were like Labour MPs, like my local MP. She's as perplexed as I am about it. She opposed it all the way. The whole political thing that led this to happening, that's a whole other story, but it's past now, you know. But I don't think that there was any political party representing the real will of the people, which was not to leave Europe, lose all their freedom. And yeah, that's where we are right now. I mean, I don't know. They've done the damage. They didn't give a shit about culture. They didn't give a they all did this whole, well, we wouldn't be able to stay up all night anymore, we're 30. This type of behaviour was just a super ignorance of what was actually running their country. So yeah, it's really screwed us over, and it breaks my heart that we can't get our friends who are in a brass band and only do rave music from Holland, who were happy to come to the UK for a grand and they wanted to build their circuits here. That's not happening. Equally, our bands aren't happening abroad.
Right.
I mean, COVID is just a smokescreen, but when that's gone, we'll still be in the same situation. You know, you look at Holland as opposed to the UK, live music-wise, their markets have doubled in the last 5 years. That's not here. It's all about venues closing and everything like that. So things like the Dutch and even the German music industry up to COVID were like, boom, and massively increasing. France has only really just got its head around doing festivals as we know about it. They've got We Are Green, they've got about 3 or 4 other ones like that, but the rest of France still haven't got their head around. The Italians are still working out how to go camping. The American market's always been really difficult. In fact, the American market now is pretty much similar to what the UK market is going to look like coming out of COVID with Brexit. Very difficult to tour. Bleeding Trump put in a law just now, which is like, yeah, you can get visas to come and tour America, give us $15,000 each, and you'll be able to do a 3-month tour. You know what I mean? And stuff like this, you know, and it's just like, God, lots of artists, yeah, it's very hard to break into that market with so much different, much easier to break into the Canadian market, for instance. So, yeah, very weird, yeah, but I mean, all around the world there's been this whole festival thing. We've been there since the beginning like that. I mean, I guess the beginning was Woodstock. Do you know what I mean? So we weren't there then, but, you know, it's grown and grown and grown, and that's really cool as well, you know, but it looks like, yeah, it looks like things like that are increasing across the world, or they were up to this point. And now the question is whether that's going to continue. I suspect for when all this festival thing first started, Steve-O, we were all like, wow, festivals are like the new holiday camps. That's what people were saying 30 years ago. And at that time we were doing only festival gigs, like 20, 30 gigs festivals a year. They weren't like holiday camps. They're like a bloody rite of passage for young people to learn about how to be adults, to learn to be free, to learn about things beyond the constrictions of their own homes. So they're much more important than holiday camps. And yeah, they are the bloody holiday camps. The only lessons that festivals really need to learn is get off the weekend paradigm. It's not about a weekend.
Yeah.
Should be like a week long every festival, much more sustainable in terms of all that equipment. But the English festival organisers, and I know hundreds of them, never respond to that argument. Fusion Festival in Germany, which I think starts on the Tuesday and finishes on the Sunday. Lots of people leave on Sunday morning and then they sell another 60,000 tickets just for Sunday. It's just like those models. That's the right way. If you're going to have a kids festival, if you're going to pay 270 quid to go to a camping festival, like Camp Festival or something like that, God damn it, that is your bloody holiday. So make it for 2 weeks. Make your money. Why not? Nobody really does that. Maybe that will change going forward because people see it as more sustainable. I mean, for God's sake, Glastonbury, first festival in Europe to have a green area. Main stage used to run off a windmill. Stuff like that, but I mean, put all that eco stuff right next to the fact that you're only running for a weekend. If you ran it over 2 weekends, which you could do, it would be a different story altogether. Personally, I'm at Glastonbury DJing on Monday night. You know what I mean? And I'll be DJing the Monday night after it's finished as well. So what happened was that we run this amazing project called Global Local, which we're really proud about. We basically, like nearly 15 years ago with the Arts Council, got this grant, and it was a small grant, but basically it gave us the liberty to start booking programs at festivals of the music that we love. And I guess if you accumulated that up in 15 years, we've probably done about 300 stages at events of diverse culture and Arabic remix, Latin remix, where diverse communities in the UK remix their culture with what's here now, whether that's gypsy punk or it's like Latin chill wave or whatever, as long as it's live. We've been in a really great position to work with some of the greatest sort of cultural curators of their communities and put that stuff in places where it wouldn't usually be. And that put us into some sort of like MBE waiting room. And then when the MBE came along as an offer, I wasn't that keen because it actually means Member of the British Empire, which...
Medal of the British Empire.
What's it called? Is it Member of the British?
No, Medal.
Medal of the British... There you go.
So you take this seriously, don't you?
Medal of the British Empire and all that sort of stuff. But my sister, I phoned up my sister and said, hey, they've offered us this thing. And within 2 minutes, I had a call from my mum, had a call from my auntie, had a call from all the relatives. And then I was like, there's just no way I can turn this down now. And that's how it happened. And I've been put in a moral situation by taking it. But at the same time, it made me mum happy. There you go on that.
That's the only thing that matters, really.
I thought it would make some blags easier and also can be helpful for some organisations that don't have any legitimacy. But I don't suspect I will keep that MBE for the whole of my life. I keep thinking, can they do anything worse that I can throw it back to them? And I'm waiting still. I'm going to get, Banksy to make it into a smiley ecstasy face. The thing is that we actually worked on one of his original shows and none of was suddenly cash. There was no cash machine in Shoreditch at the time, which is where it was. There was no cash machine in Shoreditch. So only people turning up were people with like big fat credit cards. So yeah, we actually gave out free Banksies, or the wife did anyway, at that show. So to everyone who came. So yeah, time's moved on that Banksy front. But he's like, Banksy's only the tip of an iceberg. There's so much great art. And Shangri-La at Glastonbury, where we work on, really reflects that. And Dismal Land reflected that. It's not just a Banksy thing. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, you know, he's come super well famous and couldn't be happier for the guy.
No, he's done
Not
good.
that he's particularly happy about it. I don't think he doesn't give a toss.
I think he's just having fun with it.
He's having fun with it, yeah.
I like, there's that hotel.
I went there, amazing.
That looks
Palestine.
just, what's it called again? It's got a clever name.
I've been there as well.
We're getting old.
Oh my god. Oh god, I can't remember. I went there 2 years ago. It's nearby to Bethlehem.
Yeah.
And the wall runs outside of it. And then you follow the wall around and there's like a village square there, and it's really, really scary because there's this lovely like kind of Palestinian old village, and then in the wall there's this disgusting metal roll-up shutter, and they literally just open that shutter and comes out of it military vehicles pointing guns at all the kids playing in the square. There's a playground right next to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrible. But the hotel, I'm going to remember what that is. The hotel was amazing.
Yeah, we should look it up, really, shouldn't we? Where's your phone? Hang on. You stay there.
Try that computer.
This one here?
Yeah, just there. Oh my god! It's named after the Waldorf, isn't it?
Yes, it's the Waldorf.
The Waldorf.
The Waldorf.
The Waldorf. Pretty much dedicated to never retiring, because people from this world don't really retire. But I also DJ all over the place, so I think, you know, in my dream of dreams, in 10 years' time, I'm going around the world seeing all my mates that I've worked with for years doing the old DJ set, stuff like that. That's what I would really like to do. I'd like to pull out of this whole thing like that eventually, but you know, it's even with all of this stuff, there never a day goes by without something really interesting happening. So yeah, that's a good thing. But coming to work by the river every day is just the perfect kind of chill out thing. Do you know what I mean? People feel more relaxed when they're coming down here. I'm certainly obsessed with it. I love it down here. There's never going to be the same shot of a piece of water ever will it look the same the next day.
Yeah, every day's different.
You know, every single day that looks different, and that's kind of interesting as well, isn't it? You know, water's amazing like that, you know, I mean, it's just an amazing place to be, really, and a forgotten part of London, or it was.
Right.
More. So you see this with all these boats down here, you know, I mean, when we first came here, there would be like one boat that might park out here. Now, it's the traffic jams of boats between here and 7 miles down, which is the River Thames. There's hardly a spot to stop in. The British Waterways have put in this new thing lately, which they call a safety zone. I don't know if you've heard about this. So they've taken out big chunks of the river, and the people can't do that. So all these people on these barges, you can still live this alternative life where you have to move every 2 weeks. Yeah. But you see them moving, there's like 10 boats moving, 4 of them attached to each other, just going zzz, zzz. So they've got this sort of mobile community, which is quite nice. But yeah, it's the only alternative living left in London. Well, I think back in the day, people like us could have got ourselves a venue.
Yeah.
We could have gone and got one. Could have got one out of a landlord, pub landlord, or maybe you could have even, you know, eventually after years put some sort of mortgage down on some property, which would have been about 70 grand for a basement venue or something. That stopped about 10 years ago, and then every single bit of land in London became something to be developed.
Right.
And as a result of that, that broke the chain on independent venue owners, like all those lovely old guys from the past who used to run venues. And now, if you want to own a venue, you can't actually be an individual. you have to be a massive conglomerate who's buying it because, I don't know, they bought the local cinema in Walthamstow because they bought a load of flats around it and they knew if they turned it into a venue that suddenly all those flats would be worth a load more money. You know, people are very, developers are very, you know, I mean, they're actually the good ones. This isn't just close the venue down, but yeah, it's been a pretty tough ride for London. And then you go to somewhere like Bristol and you're just like, man, London used to be like this. Do you know what I mean? And then like it's basically, even during COVID when I've been down there, I'm walking around, my eyes are wide open going, do people still do that? You hang out on a Saturday in Bristol, you won't find anyone who doesn't look like they've been up all night. You know what I mean? Whereas the kids can't, yeah, there's lots of problems with London, but at the end of the day, it is still the cultural centre of the UK. It's still got all the artists here, still got all the business here, and again, like I was saying earlier about those chains, it's still got chains that lead to somebody with money who can put something into somebody's hat somewhere down the line, you know. So it's still like a really impressive cultural place to live. But in terms of that underground, vibey, the kids all going to the same place, all hanging out, a big diverse bunch of squats or a bunch of palaces, the chain's broken and all that. It's not quite the same anymore, really. Well, I think back in the day, people like us could have got ourselves a venue.
Yeah.
We could have gone and got one. Could have got one out of a landlord, pub landlord, or maybe you could have even, you know, eventually after years put some sort of mortgage down on some property, which would have been about 70 grand for a basement venue or something. That stopped about 10 years ago, and then every single bit of land in London became something to be developed.
Right.
And as a result of that, that broke the chain on independent venue owners, like all those lovely old guys from the past who used to run venues. And now if you want to own a venue, you can't actually be an individual. You have to be a massive conglomerate who's buying it because, I don't know, they bought the local cinema in Walthamstow because they bought a load of flats around it and they knew if they turned it into a venue that suddenly all those flats would be worth a load more money. You know, people are very, developers are very, you know, I mean, they're actually the good ones. This isn't just close the venue down, but yeah, it's been a pretty tough ride for London. And then you go to somewhere like Bristol and you're just like, man, London used to be like this. Do you know what I mean? And then like it's basically, even during COVID when I've been down there, I'm walking around, my eyes are wide open going, do people still do that? You hang out on a Saturday in Bristol, you won't find anyone who doesn't look like they've been up all night. You know what I mean? Whereas the kids can't, yeah, there's lots of problems with London, but at the end of the day, it is still the cultural centre of the UK. It's still got all the artists here, still got all the business here, and again, like I was saying earlier about those chains, it's still got chains that lead to somebody with money who can put something into somebody's hat somewhere down the line, you know. So it's still like a really impressive cultural place to live. But in terms of that underground, vibey, the kids all going to the same place, all hanging out, a big diverse bunch of squats or a bunch of palaces, the chain's broken and all that. It's not quite the same anymore, really. Not for much longer. I think the Tories have just sort of taken out the last part where you can do that, which is businesses or empty factories and stuff like that. But there's actually quite a healthy bunch of young people out there trying to do that still. So I'm told.
Right.
And there's still people doing stuff in fields somewhere or other, you know, but it's just that so they're just about to pass a law which will mean that you'll get a criminal record if you try and do that, and a £10,000 fine, and so it's very unlikely that that can continue even in a demonstration sort of way. That law was aimed there, so that is just going to extinguish the routes towards first gigs and underground culture that people wouldn't usually see, you know. That's done, that's cooked. Well, health and safety always had a problem with mutoid waste and anything like that. You know, and I mean, it's only relatively recent that, you know, that form of artwork like Giles Walker, Mutoid Waste, Arcadia, you know, what they call post-apocalyptic art for some bizarre reason, if you want to put a name onto it, that's what they call it, was so disrespected. I mean, we went to the Tate Modern, did a load of gigs outside the Tate Modern, really cool events with Thames Festival and stuff like that. So then we got to know the Tate people, and we wrote them an actual official application to do a Mutoid Waste exhibition down there. Well, I mean, obviously Joe doesn't really know much about it, it never happened. And they told us there was a 10-year waiting list for them to look at the application. And that would have been like Packer, that would have been like everybody down there had, you know, a really amazing thing, whilst at the same time Joe could do a gig anywhere like that and it would be rammed.
Yeah.
You know, or whether it was, whatever, starts with D in Germany, you know, when they were doing all that stuff in Berlin, immensely popular things, but the English art world just shut their ears to it. Of course, I know a lot about this because I'm from Shangri-La, which is, again, you know, a kind of offshoot of that world in some way. You know, we don't see a festival field, we see an outdoor art gallery. Yeah, there's a wicked lady called Linda who's running, who's like a 76-year-old, 78-year-old American activist from 60s San Francisco. She's run the Bowery Ballroom. She started the Oakland Ballroom, which was like, used to be Macy's storeroom in Oakland when Oakland was a riotsville. And they opened that place up there and they transformed the whole place and got kicked out. Now it's like a yuppie, whatever, tower block. I think the other thing here is as well, there used to be so much empty property.
Yeah.
There used to be empties everywhere. There was just no way you could keep an eye on it. They used to have things called industrial estates and stuff like that, you know. Well, this whole area here is being developed into tower blocks on this side and on that side. There's a little industrial estate there. Literally, the only place between here and a tiny little part of Hackney Wick is all that's left in East London. East London used to be a manufacturing centre for the world. Those were the manufacturing centres. They all gone. That tower block there, he's sitting on top of a factory that used to build famous chairs called Brentwood Chairs. You know, marching down that road would have been 5,000 people with their tins of lunch tins going to work every day. There's nothing there now.
Right.
And here on this side as well, even last year they still had a cut glass factory, which is the only one in England run by Jewish people as well, by the Hasidic Jewish people making cut glass. That's gone. Everything's gone. Even last year they still had a cut glass factory, which is the only one in England run by Jewish people as well, by the Hasidic Jewish people making cut glass. That's gone. Everything's gone. The whole history of England is someone else's history.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not the English's history, it's the people of Africa's history, or the people of India's history, or the colonies. And you know, they were all feeding off other people and they had world markets and they had stuff like that, you know. That's not really the case anymore, you know. You look at a country like Norway, has the biggest reserves of any country in the world, bigger than Saudi Arabia. They have more money than anyone else in the world, just stacked. And it's still the world leading. You're like, why have the Norwegians got any money when they had a wheel? But it's because they're bloody engineers. They create half the ferries and engines and bits that work a hydraulic lift, and same with the Germans and all that, and they never gave up. Italians still make things. Italians are a really big maker country, you know, because they never actually did that. They always valued it and pushed all their workers into it, whereas in England we lost value for that. I mean, when I was a kid, they sold the Triumph motorbike company. Needed £11 million to buy the whole company. 11 million quid. You could have 1,000 old Triumphs and get 11 million quid for it. And the Tories at the time were like, come on, help save the British motorcycle industry. Not interested at all. Triumph went out of business or was bought by some Maltese guy. Norton went out. You know, they didn't care. All they cared about was these bloody City of London guys don't pay any tax anyway. And yeah, that's where we are now.
Well, there's no car industry left.
There are, yeah, and there's people making stuff. You know, why haven't we got an English electric car? Bloody hell. See that road over there? It's called Coppermill Lane. You know why it's called Coppermill Lane? They've invented the battery there.
Really?
The battery was invented, the commercial battery was invented here, in this borough. You know, so what the hell happened? You know, they just, why go to somewhere where you're going to sell a half of much of stuff when you've got a bigger market?
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, absolutely. We knew all of this. Everyone knew all of this. It's just gone ahead, and it's gone ahead on crazy right-wing media. It's gone ahead on like maybe a handful of British aristocrats, like the Daily Mail owner and stuff like that.
The Guardian still seems to be quite good.
Well, the Guardian's always had that.
Yeah.
We are a liberal paper. Even when they started in Manchester, they were writing about Peterloo.
Right.
They were writing stuff that wasn't popular to write for the government at that time. There's been a resurgence of great punky youth bands, or punky younger bands. Bands you might know, Fat White Family, the Slaves, the Idols are like freaking god. When you put them on stage, they're incredible. Incredible, best thing. Orioles, Snapped Ankles, there's those guys. In our world, we're all about mixing up dance music with live instrumentation, so we're putting out garage orchestras, get it over, you know. They had to work really hard, and they've got all these great colleges pushing them out, you know.
Yeah.
Same with event organisers, you know, there never was a single event course when we were kids. You could go learn to do events, and now there's, I heard something like 30,000 event students in the UK, you know what I mean, across all of these colleges, because it's what all the kids want to do.
Time to stop. But I think we got a few good little things there.
Sure you don't want to ask me about Bruce Reynolds?
Nah, we'll leave that to you.
We're not Bruce Reynolds.